Hey guys, Bidu here to tell you about the latest from Leaves' Eyes, Myths of Fate, out March 22nd on AFM Records. The album has 11 tracks, 50 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio record. They are a German symphonic metal band. Now when it comes to the design of this record, you could even consider this to be a simple design, a straightforward design, but one that works. You don't want to overcomplicate the experience of an album. You want to simplify things. You want to simplify processes, make the album as dynamic, as fluid as possible, because that's what's going to give it playability, and that's what's going to make the overall experience very engaging and entertaining. And that's exactly what happens here. An album that finds ways of alternating styles, alternating songs, so you know what's coming around the corner, but you're not quite sure what that something is. And that's what's going to keep the listener glued, and that's what's going to keep the listener coming back to the record time and time and time again. So it's an album that from a design standpoint feels very easy, very straightforward, like I said, but it really takes the quality of these individual songs and the quality that the album has and allows you to see it from a bigger picture, the collective. Great design, great structure. As far as the sound is concerned, this is an album that finds the perfect balance when it comes to symphonic metal records. Very often you listen to an album within this genre and the album feels a lot more symphonic than it feels metal. This record finds that balance between those two worlds and you're able to experience them both simultaneously. It's still a very symphonic driven record because of the orchestrations. They play a huge role in the melodies and the atmosphere and the volume of the sound and creating a cinematic theatrical vibe behind these songs, which is extremely important considering the lyrical content of these tracks. So it brings them to life, if you will, with a big presence, with a big boom, with a big impact. But they're also very subtle. They're not necessarily in the forefront. They're not overshadowing and overtaking the other elements within the sound. So they're there more as a piece of the puzzle, but not necessarily the main piece or the puzzle itself. And I think that's where the production and the design and the idea and the vision really came together perfectly on this album, because you're able to see the forest from the trees when it comes to all of the different elements. Because this album, from an orchestrational standpoint, gives room to the guitars to come in heavy. This is a heavy sounding album. For a symphonic metal record, this record really puts emphasis on metal, and that starts off with that guitar sound, that heavy guitar sound that more often than not is seen on every single song. Sometimes a little bit more heavy, sometimes a little bit less, but it always has that sense of power behind it. The guitars feel powerful in this album, and they're not one-dimensional. That's not the only thing that they're offering. You have some acoustic guitars here that also give some warmth to the sound. You have some more melodic guitars coming through, which breaks that heaviness, which breaks that thickness, and has a way of liberating the tracks and making the guitar sound feel a lot more texture. So this is an album that perhaps puts more emphasis on the guitars sound-wise than on any other element that you could expect. And then you have the drums. The drums compensate, or they give substance to the overall sound experience, and they really fill in the blanks and fill in the holes in order to make that sound feel complete. They have great texture to them as well. They have oomph. The drum sound on this record has a lot of oomph, has a lot of life in it. And for an album that has a lot of life in the drums and a lot of life in the guitars, having the orchestrations blended in between them makes the sound one that on one hand feels heavy and powerful, but on the other hand it's very melodic and also very easy to digest. And being easy to digest is what allows the album to really shine through. You don't want the songs to be so over the top, so larger than life, if you will, that the album becomes a burden on the listener, where every song starts to sound repetitive, or the sound starts to feel like it's too much for you to process, too much for you to break down. This record, not only in the structure but in the sound itself, has a way of simplifying things so you can digest all of these different elements, because they are all coming in from different places, but they're all blended in perfectly with one another. And then obviously on top of that, you have the vocals. Now, as far as the vocals are concerned, I'm not a huge fan of the male harsher vocals, or darker vocals, if you will. The good news is there's not a lot of them throughout the entire album. And when they come in, more often than not, they feel like they're adding something, or they are adding something to the dynamic of the song, specifically from a lyrical standpoint and from a storytelling standpoint. So I understand the need to use them. But for a record that's already this heavy sound-wise, that has such a great blend in terms of what the orchestrations are offering, I believe that Elena's vocals alone would have been enough to carry the album. It's nice to have that little spice. I enjoy them, but I wasn't a huge fan of them. And I felt like this album, due to the overall characteristics that it has, it would have been a perfect record vocally if Elena did everything herself, because this album really showcases her talents. It showcases her voice, showcases her warmth, her delivery, the tonality, the way she chooses to pronunciate certain words that really carry you through. There's a sense of times that her delivery is haunting. Sometimes it's brighter than life. Sometimes it's darker. There's a lot of nuances that she's able to infuse into these tracks and bring the lyrics to life. And I also enjoy the fact that they used quite a bit of layers when it comes to her vocal performance. So when you're trying to give size to vocals that are so light that just levitate off the tracks, those layers really help, because you're giving a little bit more oomph to the delivery without changing too much and without needing those harsh vocals. So to me, if there is one item that I would have liked to see change on a record that's nearly perfect, would definitely been that. There was not a lot of it, but I would say even less. Sometimes less is more. That's my opinion as far as the harsh vocals are concerned. But all around, when I look at this album, it's a very complete record. For a symphonic metal album, it doesn't get much better than this. I'm tempted to say that this is their best record to date. It's a hard statement to deny, considering the quality of the design, the structure, the sound, the production, the vocals, the lyrics, how everything came together. It's just a really phenomenal album. I was expecting a great record from these guys, but I was not expecting an album that surpassed my wildest expectations. Outstanding. Myths of Fate by Leaves' Eyes. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Hammer of the Gods. And funny enough, I picked two songs with male harsh vocals, so figure that one out. So starting off with this one, it's definitely a heavier song. It's a darker song, and it's darker and heavier, not just because of the sound. The sound plays obviously a huge role in it, but also because of the male harsh vocals. And when you have the sound that's already heavy by nature, and when you have those vocals, the two together definitely add to that darkness, definitely add to that heaviness. A very cinematic style track, but the guitars are the ones really giving volume and pushing this song forward. Elena's vocals are phenomenal. I really enjoyed the layers that they had. They also had volume from that standpoint. So it's a song that feels very together, that feels like it has all the right moving pieces. Both vocalists singing together in the chorus creates volume, creates a sense of size. Then when you have her vocals coming in and you have layers behind it, you're creating volume, you're creating size. The song already has size because of the orchestrations, the heaviness of it, the harsh vocals. So it's just a very larger than life song. And when you think of the title Hammer of the Gods, I don't think you can go on a topic like that without making a song that sounds as massive as the Hammer of the Gods. Next we have Goddess of the Night. Now this is a ballad that starts off very folky, very stripped down, but very warm. The acoustic guitars add definitely a sense of warmth to the way this song comes across. Then you start to see the song change, morph. Maybe change is not a good word, but you see the song progress and grow. The sound of this track starts to become bigger and bigger with every passing verses. The electric guitars come in, very subdued. The drums come in, then they start to get heavier. When the song finishes off, at its heaviest point. But it's a track that moves from a very folky, acoustic, warm sound, and it gradually morphs into a more metal track. Still has that ballad feel all the way through, and if there's one thing that stays very consistent, is the vocal performance. The vocals are very warm, matching that warmth at the beginning of the sound and staying with that connection all the way through, regardless of the growth in the music behind it. Last but not least, Elder Spirit. Beautiful orchestrations on this track. It matches, the orchestrations on this song really match the haunting vocal performance of the track itself. I love the more melodic guitar sound that the track has. There's a sense of calm that comes with it, and that allows the drums on this track to also shine, to come into the forefront and have a strong presence, specifically in the verses. Then the song builds up into the pre-chorus, and then it absolutely explodes into the chorus. Super hooky, super catchy. The harsh vocals on this song fit perfectly in. It allows you to see it gives texture to the overall vocal performance, and it takes nothing away by how haunting the overall track is, but specifically Alina's voice on this track, very haunting all the way through. This is it, Leaves Eyes with Myths of Fate, out March 22nd on AFM Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.